Hey there, welcome back to the Grandiose Project. So this is part 2 of a 2-part series, and if you haven't seen part 1, I would ask you to go and click on the screen right now and go back and watch that one before you watch this. Part 1 is where I show you how to take the photos and the lighting and setup and everything and the gear I use. And part 2, this part, is how I import the photos and edit them to get the results that I want. Okay, so if you haven't seen it, go ahead and click part 1 and then come back and enjoy this part 2. Okay, so I uploaded all the images to Lightroom and now I'm going to go through and show you how I'm going to edit them. So let's take this one here. This panel is sort of the main panel, and I want to kind of base everything around this. So if I go to the next panel over, which would be this one, the reason I kept the tripod in the same place was so that the scale of the paintings would remain the same. And so when I go to Photoshop, even though the paintings look kind of small when you get to these other ones like this, when I go to Photoshop, at least the scale will be the same, so I won't have to try to resize them. So what I want to do now is go and find the best images from each one, and then I'm going to put them together. I'm going to do a basic edit here in Lightroom, then I'm going to send them all over to Photoshop and crop them and put them into a new document. So I've gone through and flagged the ones for the painting that I want to talk about, and I'm just going to go up here and choose them. So for that particular artwork, there's 8 panels, and they're made up of all these different sizes, as you've seen. So that looks pretty consistent so far. One quick thing I wanted to show you why I don't like to go all the way out to the edges of the frame on the camera is because look at this vignetting that you get. It gets really dark out here on the edges, and so I don't ever really want to entirely fill up the frame, but I do want to stick to mostly the center. So I want to keep everything the same size, and I just want to crop it and straighten stuff. So I want to use this image to start from because that's going to be my base to put everything around when I put it in a new document. So I'm going to go to Develop here, and I'm going to do some basic color correction. Then I'm going to sync it across all of these files so that all of the color and all of the white balance and stuff should be accurate. I'm going to cool this off just a little bit. Those lights were a little bit warmer. The color looks good otherwise. That looks more like it does when I look at it right now. I don't think I'm going to boost the exposure yet. I don't want to do any sharpening until I'm entirely done with the image. So let's see what happens if I do the automatic lens correction, if it does anything here. So see, that got rid of a lot of that vignette, and that actually looks pretty good. So now I'm just going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to go and highlight all of these, and then I'm just going to hit sync. I'm not going to crop it. All that stuff looks fine. So now that should have taken care of all of the white balance and the vignetting, and it even straightened out some of the distortion that was happening from the lens. Okay, so when I was just looking at those, these 4 are a little bit underexposed compared to these 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, and then I'm going to take the one next to it as a reference, and I'm going to try to match the exposure. So let's see. It's close. Yeah. So that looks about right. So now I'm going to take the rest of these and I'm gonna make them the same exposure. And then everything should match up and I can send it all over to Photoshop. And one way I can tell is if I go and I look at the histogram up here, I can see that if I go from that one to that one to that one, they're all staying just about the same. If I wanted to get really nitpicky, I could actually boost this up just a little bit more. Maybe about here. See, the histogram isn't really moving, so that is close enough. So I'm going to do this at 63. And then I'll change these. Okay, so that looks good. Now I can see that this side of the wall is a little bit brighter, but I think when I crop it, it won't really matter too much. If it does, I could always come back and throw a little bit of a filter on it, and I could darken it up. So I could do something like that and just hit that side of it. And that actually worked pretty well, so I may go back and do those other photos. If I don't want to go back and do them all individually, I can just select them and then sync them. I could have done that with the exposure also. So now let's see what they look like. And I think I'll add one to here. About there maybe. And this is gonna create just a little bit of a darker edge. Yeah, that looks better. Now this corner is still a little bit dark, so I could create another one here and kind of lighten that. And I don't want it quite so strong. About there. Okay, so there's all my adjustments. That looks pretty good. One quick thing. I think I'm going to actually darken this corner just a little bit. There, that looks good. And it's this little bit of attention to detail about trying to fix all of these little things that are hard to fix with the lighting. Lightroom makes it really easy. Okay, so now I'm going to take these and I'm going to send them over to Photoshop and crop them and put them in a new document so that they all fit together. Okay, so I'm here in Photoshop and I created a document that was the right size to fit all of those images for that one painting. So if you go up here and look at these, you can see that I've already cropped some of them and I've straightened them and all that stuff. So I'm going to show you how I did that on this one. So first I go to the crop tool and I grab this little straighten tool here and I draw a line across the edge there, and that should straighten it all up. Let me try to do that on the bottom one also. See if it has any different effect. So it was just a little bit different. That just probably means that the canvas isn't entirely square. Let me try doing it this way. So see, the canvas isn't entirely square. So I'm probably going to have to use the warp or the skew tool and kind of fix that. So for now, I'm going to bring down this. And you can see over here on the right, it's hitting the edge of the canvas sooner than it is over here on the left. Let's try the bottom. And here it's hitting this way. So see, when I did that line up here, this is probably correct now. Yeah, see, that lines up really nice. So the canvas isn't totally straight, and that's pretty common. And you can see it's really skewed over here. So this is actually the worst one. Most of those other images that I edited, like these, they all were pretty square. So this one's going to take a little bit of work. So that cleared that. So I'm going to make sure, try to do this again. I'm going to take the straighten tool, and I'm actually going to do this side here. Right there. Okay. Now I'm just going to drag this down, and I'm going to get it close. I'm going to drag this one up. That looks pretty good. This one I'm going to leave a little bit bigger. And this one also, so I can actually see when I go to use the other tool. So I'm going to let that crop it. Okay. Now I'm going to go up here to edit and transform and skew. So now if I drag this corner, it should just drag that and make it a little bit more in line. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this corner over here. I don't want to make that even. Okay, that looks good. Then I'm going to go down here. I'm actually going to push that up a little bit. And that one looks good. Okay, so now everything is more square. So I'm going to let Photoshop fix that. Now I'll go back to the crop tool and I can drag it and get it closer to the edge. Sometimes it's hard to see it like that, so I'm actually going to go into 100% pixel. Now I can get really close. And I want to try to get rid of as much of the wall as I can. But by using that skew tool, I can straighten everything up and get it nice and even so that I can get rid of most of the wall. And down at the bottom. Now sometimes it jumps like this and I'm not entirely sure why. But it's really annoying. And I will have to go and try to figure out why it does that, but I'm just going to zoom in even more and then try to back off on that. There, that looks better. Okay, so that looks really good, and there we go. Actually, there's a little bit more on that edge than I wanted, but that's okay. Now I need to rotate this canvas, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to image rotation. There we go. So now I've got all my images and they're all to the exact scale that the canvas was because I didn't move the tripod. So now I can go and start dropping them into this document that is the right scale. Okay, so I'm back in Photoshop. Photoshop crashed on me, and so I had to do a lot of recovery work to get back to this point, and I didn't want to bore you guys with it. So anyways, I edited all the panels, and I cropped them, and I put them into this master file, basically, which will be the complete painting. So now they're all stacked in here, and basically I just have to choose the layer, and then I can move it around and place it where I want it to be. And when I'm done, you will see it in a minute. So anyways, I'm gonna leave Photoshop, and you will see this back on the video. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. Okay, see you next time.